And it's just a matter of luck. Like when you catch up, bucks are smart. They're not, even when they're in that type of distress, they're still bedding in areas where they have the advantage. And so every time I came onto them, I didn't have. It's not like you're turning on the Discovery or the Outdoor Channel, and they're walking to a food plot, putting their head down.
They don't like to die.
They don't enjoy it. No,
they don't like to die.
And I don't. And we've said this many times. It's the worst part of hunting is the actual, harvest or kill, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I agree.
I always take a moment and thank the animal.
Welcome back to another episode of Northwoods Whitetails. I am Joey Davis, joined by
Isaac Young,
Travis Williams,
and John Wright. A little under the weather tonight.
We are
rhymed.
Little team meeting here. We're gonna apologize for any language that you may hear. Isaac's gonna try and edit it out the best that he can. Press a button.
Yep. Little of that.
Between these two, we're gonna need it.
We tend to bust on each other a little bit.
Not bad.
Seems like a love-hate relationship.
It's a love-love.
It's a
love-love. But we usually talk at least once a day.
Gotcha.
And it's, a lot of times it's in the mornings. And I'd say the first 5 minutes of every one of our conversation is just getting the ball busting out of the way. He usually starts it, but I usually finish it.
Yeah. We've only stopped talking to each other.
Oh, my God. Here we go. Yeah, here we go. I cannot talk to Travis anymore.
Yeah.
Was it over deer hunting or women? Or both?
Definitely not women.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, usually that's when friendships, that's when they usually get rocky.
It's usually deer hunting.
Okay.
Shed hunting.
Yeah.
It's always John's fault.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
He never will help me drag out a deer, so
Do you help him?
he doesn't shoot any.
Oh. Dang. Coming in hot.
Yeah, there was
Usually
definitely some heated situations there this fall.
I sense.
I was getting it from both ends of the spectrum. I get a phone call, and while I was on the phone with one, the other was calling. It was a pretty good bitch session back and forth.
Yep. How'd you guys do this year deer hunting?
Did all right.
did all right?
Shot a 8-pointer in New Hampshire and another 8 in Maine.
What'd they weigh?
The one in New Hampshire weighed 170 something, and the one in Maine was 168.
The one in Maine had a pretty good rack of horns.
Yeah, it was,
so.
it was a good buck.
Nice browse on him.
Yeah, fun hunt, crazy hunt. A lot of miles on that one.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. How'd you do, John?
I shot a 9-pointer in New Hampshire. It weighed, 153.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get one in Maine this year. I hunted some new areas, and I thought I was going to get one, but just didn't pan out.
Yep.
Which is fine. I'm excited to go back next year. There was a good sign there. So
Looked like, because I was going through all your footage, it looked like you didn't have a whole lot of snow in that area this year.
No, there was only one day I was able to track, and it almost happened. The buck was in front of me. I got a glimpse of him, but he just slipped over a hill on me. So it is what it is. He was a good one. Be bigger next year.
Yep.
Yep.
Can't wait for next year already, though. It's like
This year.
this year.
It is this
right?
year.
It's this year.
Yeah. Next season.
We got some gobblers to go after. Do you guys turkey hunt or nobody?
I turkey hunt a little bit.
Do you?
I love taking the kids, but my nephews, I shot a bunch of birds with them, and they've just gotten older, and, they're not as into it anymore. So hopefully I've got a couple of friends that have some younger kids that are trying to get into it, so I'm hoping to maybe take a few of them this year. It's a tough time of year for me. I'm a general sales manager of Marina, so it's like this is my crazy time.
Anybody that's looking for a boat, get a hold of Travis Williams.
That's right. We got him. So yeah, it's. I just work so much this time of year.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's hard too.
It's
Hard
very
work.
difficult work.
Yeah.
It is.
Selling boats is
I
tough.
gotta do a lot of talking on the phone and typing. And
Don't forget scanning the papers. That's a lot of work.
actually, I do it on my phone now. I don't even have to put it in a thing.
So you have to get up?
Yeah, it's cool. You just take a picture of it.
Wow.
His legs are nice and fresh for the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're not swinging a hammer, you're not working, according to John Wright.
Well, Something
Don't
to be said
agree
about
with
that.
him.
Oh, I'm just saying.
Don't
you know?
agree with him. It's just you're gonna make him go further and further.
That's the point.
It's only you.
Yeah.
Everyone else works. It's just not you.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Now, being a salesman must be tough, though, because you got to act like you're happy all the time, right? That's got to be kind of tough.
It's just mentally tiring because it's like it's a cat and mouse game, and there's preparation that goes into it. And then, of course, I'm the general sales manager, so I'm ordering the boats, I'm managing the P&L and our floor plan, and it's just a lot. And the more
John's playing his little violin over here.
the more and when the season's the season's underway. We rent boats, we valet boats. We're trying to deliver all these sales boats and also manage the inventory and the employees. And it's think about like most businesses, they operate on 12 months. Well, we operate pretty much like with our retail and people actually being in the facility at the marina. It's like a 4 or 5 month season, So you take that 12 months and you pretty much push it in 4 or 5 months. And
so you get a lot of time off to hunt, though.
that is literally one of the reasons why I kind of made the transition
Right.
to the marina was, I interviewed for the position, and the owner's like, I told him I love to hunt. I'm like, I want at least 2-3 weeks off for hunting. He's like, well, you can get the whole season off, And I'm like,
Okay.
I'm a salesman, so I didn't show my excitement. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, that's interesting. Inside, I'm going, yes. Where do I sign?
What's your? Maybe I'll call your boss. Maybe you guys need to start installing snowplows because that's about October, November.
Well, you need to remember that Joey's got the contact information of your current boss. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
Okay, so that swings both ways.
Oh, goodness. All right, so let's get into a little deer hunting. Tell me about your main hunt. You went through how many rounds of ammo? Let's start with that.
Well, I was counting the other day. I think I shot 11 times.
Wow.
Yeah. My dad and I were hunting this piece. There's 2 big mountains, and there's a road that kind of separates the 2 of them. And how I hunt with my father is we kind of pick, like one day he picks the spot, the next day I pick the spot. And I'm more of a tracker than he is. He's an opportunistic tracker. Like if he stumbles upon a big buck track, it's kind of doing what he wants. He's going to take that track and run with it. But I'll drive the roads, and I'll take like winter roads and skid roads, just put on as many miles as I can when it's the right conditions, and just lay down the miles in areas that I'm a little bit, familiar with. And I believe it was Wednesday. It was the same day John shot his buck, your 9-pointer. What date was that? Do you remember?
Boy, I don't.
It was that Wednesday we got that snow.
17th, maybe? November
No,
7th?
it was early on that.
Was it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
So I thought it was a 16th.
Maybe
But
it
anyway,
was a 16.
I think it was a 16th.
Yeah, you might have been close. Yeah.
So I had picked the first day, and we did a big hunt and didn't really find much. My dad had hunted the ridge on the other side of the road, and he really liked it. He's like, I want to go back there. I'm like, well, it's your day, so you pick. That's where we're going. That's where we're going. So I went up on top of the mountain, and I went in kind of on the north side, and he went on the south side. And I got to the top of the mountain. It was a pretty good hike up in there. Beautiful conditions, snowing, blowing. It was getting worse. Just that day that you wait for, stomachs and knots.
Killing day.
Killing day.
Yep.
Killing day. And I get to the top of the ridge, and I finally caught my first fresh track. And it goes up to a tree, hooks it, and it's green. And I'm like, all right, here we go. Didn't have a huge foot on it. Didn't have much stagger, but I was trying to sort it out and see what was going on. And my dad calls me in the radio, and I'm like, where are you? He's like, oh, I'm down, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, I just caught a decent buck track, and I think it came up to me and turned around based on the track. He's like, I'm going to follow it a little bit. I'm like, all right, well, I'm up here. I'm goofing off with this thing. I want to see what it's going to do. And, it wasn't 2 minutes after we spoke, and I hear boom, boom, down through the valley. And at first I didn't know it was him because he was a little over a mile from me. And the way that, sound traveled in that valley, I wasn't 100% convinced it was him. I called him on the radio, nothing. So I kind of went back to trying to sort out the tracks I was on. And finally he gets on the radio and he's like, yeah, I shot. I'm like, all right, well, then my hunt's now over.
Yep.
I love hunting with my father. He's going to be 70 this June. And so, put the radio away and I started beelining it for him. And I get down there. Meanwhile, he was calling me on the radio, and he had said that he hit it. And I finally get down to where I could see where he was, stood, and I see where he's tracking the buck. Well, now he tracked the buck for, because it probably took me a good hour to get to where he was. So he tracked the buck for another hour, and he was going on him pretty good. So he probably went another mile and a half. We get down to the road, and I can see my dad across the road. And so I call him on the radio. I'm like, what do you want me to do? You want me to just follow along behind you here? Or I can tell you where you're going. It ain't pleasant. It's a hole of yuckiness. Okay.
We can just, we can say shithole.
It was a beep hole.
Yeah.
And so I said, Dad, I'm going to run up the road. I know there's a skidder road that kind of loops through the middle of that section, and I'm going to see if I can maybe get out in front of him. So that's what I did, and I ran out in front of him, and it was textbook. How we didn't kill the buck right there, 9 lives, because this buck should have been dead. Now, he had hit the buck, and you could tell that it's, he wasn't walking right with he was swinging his, I think it was his front right leg. Yeah, it was his front right leg. But he really wasn't bleeding much. He'd bleed here and there. And he hadn't bedded. He's gone probably 3 miles from my dad had hit him. And long story short, we met up, and I saw my dad below me, and I go down there, and the track is coming up, which doesn't make any sense because I just did a big L to him. And where the deer's headed is inside that L. And I'm and I was just standing right there. So, Dad, we got to go. He's trying to tell me the story. I'm like, Dad, I want to hear the story, but we have to go because this deer's right here. And so we take off, double team him. He stepped right in my boot tracks where I stood for 15 minutes. And I'm just I don't get it. I still don't get it. I don't know what happened. But he must have just went up and around me. And so we started double teaming the buck, and he went left and right. And he ended up going through this big clear cut. And we get to the top, and my dad's he's going to be 70 this June. And, not for nothing, he's in really good shape for 70. I hope to God that I'm in the shape that he's in at his age because he can go. But essentially, he's just listen, it's a beautiful buck. It's just going to kill me if you don't take off after him. So we made the decision that I was going to go on him. And I probably only went 200-300 yards. And I look up above me, and I see the deer take off. I pull up, boom, and I let one fly. My gun actually didn't rack. It was frozen. It was cold. I was hunting my peep gun. And I didn't really go look real well, where I shot, because I could see the deer. He ran from left to right out through the clear cut. And he was kind of in the sprucey stuff along the edge. And so instead of going to where I shot, I just beelined it to where he went, And my dad actually later on came up behind me, and I'm pretty sure I hit him in the back of one of the legs on that shot because he never went uphill again. All he wanted to do was go uphill. And I think because, of this injury there that my dad gave him. And then he went out left to right, and I was running on him, going by moose. I almost stepped on one. Windy, blowing, brutal, sleet hitting you in the eyes. And I get to the end of the cut, which that cut's a pretty big cut. I'd say it's probably half a mile or so across. And I'm just at the edge, and, as a tracker, when you get to those transitions, you want to be paying attention. And so I was scanning, I'm scanning. I look, and I can see a deer right in the green growth on the other side looking at me. I put the bead on it, and I'm I know it's him, but I can't see horn, I'm not going to just shoot. And so I kept the bead on him, and finally I blatted a couple times or whatever there, and he just took off, and boom, I let one fly. So now I've shot twice. Well, somebody's got a little tally so we can keep track of all the shots.
Yep, I'm counting.
Wait,
I'm counting.
Pause real quick.
So he's got 3 so far.
How many shots did the Northwoods Whitetails boys take last year? Between just you two, there's what? 25.
Yeah,
there's 25 right there.
More than a box of shells, that's for sure.
God.
Well, there is a story to it.
Hey, I've read some YouTube comments. We need to learn how to shoot.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah,
it is true.
We really need to practice.
I think there's a comment in there that hasn't been posted yet. It says peep guns aren't for everybody.
Well, I'll be honest with you. The jury's out for me. I love peep guns. I love how they carry. I love the way they go through the woods, the way you don't have to worry about the scope. But
an old stick.
I ended up, when I came home after this hunting season, I was like, I got to shoot that gun. Let's make sure, It was shooting 16 inches low. Oh.
That'll do it, Trav.
at
low.
like 50 yards. I don't know what happened. I think the Williams Pete, I just didn't tighten it up enough.
It moved.
It moved.
I mark them. I take a flat screwdriver and I scratch it right in it, so that way.
Yeah. Well, you kill a lot of bucks with a peep gun, and I wouldn't mind you coming over. We'll have a little shooting session one of these days. Northwoods Whitetails shooting contest.
With the peep?
I'll lose.
John will win.
Yeah, I'll lose.
Are you a
I can
good
tell
peep
you
shooter?
that.
He was like a sharpshooter in the military.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding. John doesn't have a mic, but he just said he was a state champ 2 years running.
So we're going to have him be our personal coach to teach us boys how to shoot. So anyway, I get to the end of that cut. I shoot at him. He takes off, and he goes through this thick green spruce. And you guys have been in it. You know what I'm talking about. It's like the stuff where you like trying to distort your body to slide through, and it's pop, tink, pop. And you just can't go. So, and I'm saying at this point, by the way, I had been filming, and my GoPro, I realized, wasn't on. And I'm like, why is this not running? I know everybody here at this table's heard the story, but for the listeners,
Right.
What had happened is my GoPro would film for about 8 seconds. So I would turn it on, and, oh, good, we're filming, and I'd go.
It was a cold day.
It was a cold day, and so it filmed for 8 seconds and shut off. So I didn't know that it wasn't filming.
Right. And
So
that's
there's
that's why that video is not on YouTube right now.
Right. And there's about 300 8-second clips.
Which one's the beep button?
This one.
That one right there?
Yeah.
Okay. Part of it, Trav, too, was because you...
He got the buck, though.
I did get
the
him.
buck.
Well, and I'll be the first. I'll be the first to admit I get like kill mode and nothing else matters.
Yeah. That's why filming can be a pain in the butt.
And
Really
that's
can
what I mean. I fiddled with that thing for about 2. When I got back to camp, I fixed it in 1 second. It was like tick, click, click, boop. But in that moment, it was like threw it my pack off. I went,
The hell with this thing.
I got a deer to kill.
Yeah.
And, I love my dad very much. And looking at his face, he was just like, not, I'm going to say emotional, but just like defeated that he wounded such a beautiful animal. And I was going to kill that deer. You know what I mean? So I went in there, and I'm going through the tink pop, and I'm going along. And I don't know how far I went. Not far, only half mile or so. And I could see a deer bedded. And I'm 90% sure it's him, right? So I'm trying to tink pop my way through and position myself where I can see something other than just his ass. That's all I could see. And he jumped up. Tink pop, off he goes. This is when I jumped off the ledge. So my dad was, fast forward a little bit, my dad was just kind of following along behind me. He'd make little swings and jump back on the track. Well, he happened to jump back on the track at this point, and he goes, calls me on the radio. This is later on in the track. And he goes, did you jump off a ledge? And my dad, I got to tell you, like when I jumped off it, I felt like I was jumping off a rock. When I landed, I felt like I jumped off a ledge.
Yep.
But again, that's that tunnel vision, that go mode. I was just like, oh, it doesn't look that bad. And I kind of slid.
Yep.
And then when I hit, I was like, oof, ouch. But anyway, so I kept going on the buck, and he went a long ways. I think I bumped him without seeing him or knowing I bumped him because he started to walk again. I'm like, all right, here we go, slowed down. And all of a sudden, he's running again. I'm like, yeah, I jumped him. Goes down, crosses the hiking trail, goes across another bit, and then there's another road, like a grassy road you can't drive up or anything, crosses that, and he gets down in this low stuff, and I'm like, this deer is going to bed. It's quiet. The wind has finally settled down a little bit. It's not snowing as hard, and I'm poking, and I'm telling you guys, this buck jumped up from here to the antlers. I don't know what that is, 6 yards, 5 yards?
Close. Yeah.
And if my peep gun wasn't shooting 16 inches low, it probably would have been done right there. But I pulled up, boom, boom. And I knew I hit him with one of those two because he kind of reacted to one of the shots. So I just took off running. I'm slapping another magazine clip in, whatever you guys want to call it.
Pause real quick.
Pausing.
So you didn't shoot that peep gun before the season?
I did.
You did?
I did.
So it
Spent a
moved
lot.
that day.
that day or
Okay.
It's
See, that-
debatable when he let John Wright shoot the gun
Okay.
John
All right.
in the
You see,
corner
that's-
over there
that
messing
is
with
a
the
big,
sight.
That's a big part of the story, though.
John and I
because-
did sighting guns together. You've got some footage on that on one of the big cameras I gave you, so you could roll that. Maybe there's
true.
some evidence on there.
Yeah,
Maybe
there
there's some
might be.
tampering.
Okay.
There could be like
I
a
adjusted it a little bit. It was off, and I said, well, that'll help him a little bit.
this deflate gate. This could be peep gate.
The Peep Gate. The Peep Gate of 2022. All right. Anyways.
So after John messed with my gun, he shoots. I shoot twice. I go, and I mean now he's hurting. I can tell he's hurting. So I'm going, and I get a little bit further there, and here he comes running left to right. I pull up. It was the best shot that I had the whole time. I'm like, he's dead. Here we go. And this is where our hunts are eerily same day, chuck and lead, eerily similar. I pull up, and I hadn't racked the gun all the way forward. Remember I was telling you I was having issues? And I pull up, click. Best shot I had. Running left to right, broadside, wide open. I rack it, pull up, deer's out of sight. Start running again. Here we go. We're going. I hit this logging road. And you know how there's that thick edges, sometimes those logging roads? There's like a little gully.
Yep.
And I'm going along, and I look, and he's walking, limping, out in front of me about 60 yards. And I can't shoot through that, so I bust through it, pull the gun up, boom, runs down over, there's like a brook. I run up to the top of the berm, where like the edges of the logging road is. Pull up, shoot 2 more times. What are we at now?
A lot.
It's a couple.
Was that 6, 7?
7, 8, 9. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot.
So I keep going. I get down there. I never once, other than how the animal acted, saw a change in his gait he was stumbling from pretty much the first time I shot at him till I killed him. Went a little bit further, and I can see he's laying in the spruces again, and it's starting to get dark. At this point, it's like 3:30. We're in the North Country. It's cloudy, and he's laying there, and again, I can't see antlers. And he's only 45, 50 yards. It's thick as rhubarb, and I don't shoot. He gets up, runs off, no shot. Go a little further, cross this road. I have no idea where I am. I'm like, I think you know what? I don't care. I got to kill a steer. And I look up, and he's standing about 150, 200 yards out, and he's got like you could see his back legs hurt. It's like kind of hung up, whatever. And I pull up. I'm like, I'm not shooting him. I'm shooting the ass. I'm going to slide to the left. Well, as soon as I slid to the left, off he goes. And I'm talking 150 plus. Boom! Set another one. Why not? Get down there, and this is when I was like, it's almost 4. I am smoked. I'm seasoned. Like, hamstrings are seasoned. My left, right, both quads seized permanently. Like they're not coming out of it. They're just locked up. And I get down in this. Now it's like just the woods were better. I'm like, if I can catch him in this, I can kill him. So I told myself, you gotta slow down. You got to get this done before it's dark and you're, come back to the coyotes chewing on them. And I did. I slowed down a little bit, and I got in this one little strip cut, and I looked down, and he's bedded 50, 60 yards away. And again, here I'm like, another scenario. I pull the peep gun up, I put it on him, and I'm like, just show me your antlers. And he did. He turned his head, and boom. I ended up shooting him 3 more times. I shot him. He tried to get up. Boom, I shot him again, and then finally, he expired after the 3rd one. But really fun hunt. Good, glad that we were able to close the deal on him. Not the way I want to do it, For all the listeners out there that haven't hunted this way and don't understand this scenario, we're not out, as I said many times in this story, in this account, I wasn't going to pull the trigger unless I knew it was the buck I was after. I'm not out there trying to shoot 2 deer or shoot a doe or any of that stuff. So, and that's part of what honestly probably impeded me a couple times from shooting them earlier. And it's just a matter of luck. Like when you catch up, bucks are smart. They're not, even when they're in that type of distress, they're still bedding in areas where they have the advantage. And so every time I came onto them, I didn't have. It's not like you're turning on the Discovery or the Outdoor Channel, and they're walking to a food plot, putting their head down.
They don't like to die.
They don't enjoy it. No,
They don't like to die.
and I don't. And we've said this many times. It's the worst part of hunting is the actual harvest or kill, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I agree.
I always take a moment and thank the animal. And it was a special hunt. Again, I really love, tracking and hunting the big woods and being able to do it with my father in that manner and close that deal and have that memory is something I'll cherish forever.
It's a good story.
Yep, it's a pretty sweet story.
There's a lot of people out there that I guess would frown at a story like this because of shooting. But, as a hunter, when you wound a deer, you have to do what you can to finish the hunt. And this one got drawn out a long ways. Sometimes they do. Sometimes that's the way they go. If you hunt enough, you're going to wound deer. It's going to happen. But if you're putting all your effort in to finish that off, that's all you can do. I mean, and it's a little frustrating because a lot of the acceptable ways people do it is they go back home and let the deer sit and suffer for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Well, the way we hunt up here on snow,
You're talking about, not to interrupt you, but you're talking about bow hunting, right?
Yeah.
Somebody sinks one into a deer.
Yeah.
They don't know what that deer's going through, right?
right, but that's acceptable.
Well, that's acceptable because that's what's shown, and that's
Right.
out of sight, out of mind, right? They
Exactly.
don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You do because you're following that buck.
That's right. And so, you got to put your effort in. You got to finish the job. In my opinion, if you've got snow, you've got a wounded deer, you're not going home and wait until the next day.
Not what we hunt.
Yeah.
Way too many coyotes. I mean, look at the deer you shot last year. I mean, there's areas where I hunt where if you don't go get that animal within hours,
Yeah.
the dogs are going to be on that thing. And
on it.
I'll tell you, one of the biggest reasons I hunt, I was in a meat crisis not too long ago. A good buddy of mine just loaded me up with some burger meat. Thank you if you're listening. I absolutely adore venison. It's a big part of why I hunt. And, I'm not going to let, a little bit of time ruin that for me. I'm going to go after them. And
Yeah.
No, you got to do what you got to do.
Get 'em.
Right? And nobody wants to see that animal suffer. We've all had situations like that. You can talk to every hunter.
Yeah.
I have one that replays in the back of my mind that I can think of that, I'd busted his rear leg and then I busted both his front legs and I still had to shoot him again, right? Like I feel horrible to this
So
day
tough.
for that buck. You know what I mean? It's not the way that you want it to go. It's just the way that it happens sometimes.
they're so tough.
the will to survive.
But if you backed out and let the deer sit overnight, is that any better? No.
Out of sight, out of mind, not a clue what took place, right?
Yeah.
Unless you have snow on the ground, and I've seen it before, and it's not a good scenario. You've seen where a buck's got up a dozen times and bedded down, or even bow hunting. How many times have you made a marginal shot on a buck, and you get up there and he beds down, and he gets up a little bit, he beds down, he gets up a little bit, he beds down. It happens. You're not going to see that on TV. They're not going to show you that, right?
Like my buddy Nate and he hit a pretty good buck in New Hampshire a couple of years ago. He hit it in the hock, in the back leg, and we made the decision after following it for a ways that it was going to rain, and we knew it was a marginal hit, but he was bleeding, so we just we're going to push him, and we pushed him and pushed him and pushed him like 5-6 miles, and we ended up getting him. And if we didn't push him, we wouldn't have got that deer. Right. I'm pretty convinced he would have clawed it up. He would have bedded up, clawed it up, and he would have survived. So
or not survived,
or not survived because of the injury.
Got eaten from that rear hock to his midsection before he died from the coyotes chewing on him.
Could
And
be.
that's the way I always look at it: is if I can control the situation, I'm going to do my very best to control the situation.
Right, and I think a gut shot is one thing. If you know you shot a deer in the guts with a bow, then you should probably let him sit. But
And I think it's a little bit different talking archery versus tracking a big buck or a buck.
Yeah.
On snow,
Right.
in the North Country.
The snow
like
is
where
the
we're hunting.
difference.
Yeah, for
Whether
sure.
it's if you've got snow,
yeah,
you're not going to push that deer and lose his trail.
Nope.
You can follow the tracks.
at least still dark. Yeah, Yep.
I know a pretty good story we could talk about.
Lay it on me.
The one where I taught John how to track deer for the first time. We double teamed that buck in Pittsburgh.
Let's hear it.
Remember I
He's-
taught you?
You're his protege.
He thinks he is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or sensei. however you want to.
He cut me off on the track.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dang.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah. That didn't work out for him, though.
Hey, John Moulton, how does it work out when you double team a buck with John Wright?
You end up dragging usually.
He said you end up dragging usually.
And Brian Emerson, if you're listening, you could maybe you'll be on an episode with us here, and you can share a few of your John Wright double teaming. But if you double team a buck with John Wright, be prepared to drag.
Yeah.
But I'll let you start that story. It was actually a really fun hunt, fun day.
So is that the first year I hunted up there with you guys?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah. So they were hunting out of a camp, and they invited me over. So I went over, and I think I'd shot a deer in Maine. Yeah.
You shot that 10.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so I tagged out in Maine. Travis says, come on over and hunt with us. Okay. So I went over, and he kind of brought me up into an area, and we all kind of go our separate ways. We don't really hunt together, I don't think. But so we struck off, and I was just kind of roaming around. I went down around the end of this knob and cut this buck track, and it was going up onto this knob that I just kind of circled around all the way around. I'm like, huh. And it was a decent track. I mean, it was, good enough to follow. So,
What's good enough to follow
that was
for you?
What's good enough to follow for me?
Yeah, like where in the north? What are you talking?
If I had to look back, if I saw that track right now, I'd probably say it was a 175 pounder.
Mm-hmm. What did he weigh? Wasn't it 180?
Yeah, 179 or 180. Yeah.
So you'll take that track.
Yeah.
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 Me too.
It's a mature buck.
Me too.
The way I look at that is, for one, I have killed some bucks that have, what's the word you use for tracks? Gabagord?
Gahiba Horbus.
I love that, by the way. 4-finger humdinger. I will jump on a 4-finger humdinger if I see it, right?
Yeah.
But in my mind, if you're hunting where we hunt and how we hunt, you're maybe going to have 3 kill days.
Right.
And I'm going to take the opportunity that I have.
Get on a good track.
And if it's a 180 pounder, I'm just dreaming that he's a 180 incher, right?
Could be.
If he's not, it's still going to be fun.
Do you guys find a lot of those big 4-finger tracks?
No.
Because I literally put on probably 200 miles every year, during gun season, and I'll find maybe one.
Yeah.
If I'm lucky.
One's my number.
And I'm not hunting super north, maybe, unlike you, Joey. I don't know. How many do you find? Do you find a lot?
How many 200 plus?
No, I'm
pound
talking
buck tracks?
like big, huge 4-finger.
4-finger humdinger.
Yeah, like
the
how
oh my
many?
God tracks.
Yeah, the oh my, like whoa, like one of those. Do you see a lot of them? Because if you do, I'm gonna have to start going up north.
Well, you should go up north regardless. But I would say in all my miles this year, I crossed one that was.
Yeah, so that's
one
the
that I
same.
know was in the 240, 250 department.
Okay, yeah.
And I say 1 or 2 a year, maybe 2. It's usually 1, and it's usually old. And you're like,
And that
you'll
was
backtrack it. Like, I got to know something about this deer. And
and that one was Vermont. That was a real one.
In the 4-finger, like what I'm saying, in the country I'm hunting, that's probably only 200 pounder, like barely 200. Mm-hmm. I usually only find one of those every year.
Yep.
I find that
Always.
whatever you think the track weighs, they usually weigh a little bit less.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You tend to get excited. Well, boy, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It's always less, but whatever.
Biggest track I've ever seen. I killed the buck and he weighed 194. Yeah. So I mean, his track was just like giant.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I started to say when I started this whole thing. Is like I killed a buck in Pittsburgh that weighed great big rack, 177 pounds, drop tine 10-pointer. But if any of us in this room saw that track, you'd be like, oh.
Yeah, big clown feet.
God.
Yeah.
And then I shot a big white 8, same thing, giant track, both of them. That one weighed 188 or 191, something like that.
It's a bad trait for a deer to have.
Late
around
season
here.
or what?
Big feet.
Most of the deer I kill is late season.
Yeah.
I mean, traditionally, I used to not go up there the last week of the season.
So that deer was 200 plus all day.
Probably
beginning
in
of the
his
season.
Yeah, probably if he lost some weight rutting.
Yep.
Much better tracking towards the end of the season.
Yep.
So, anyways, back to that story. I cut this buck track, and it's going up on this knob that I just made a big U shape around. I'm like, And he's kind of puttering going up the knob. I'm like, geez, already? I'm already at the end. So I'm just poking up through, and I'm looking up through the spruces where he's going in, and I catch a flicker of movement up there. I'm like, oh, is that him? And I don't have my gun up, but I've got it kind of halfway up, and I'm trying to get a little better look, and I see something move again. I'm like, and then all of a sudden I see orange, and it's only 20 yards away. I'm like, no, someone's cutting me off on that track. And I think we had radios. Yeah. We had radios. So I called Travis on the radio. I'm like, did you just cut a buck track? He goes, yeah, it's a great one. I said, yeah, you just cut me off. I'm right behind you. I'm like, I can see you. So he waited, and I went up there. He's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know. Let's double team it. Whatever,
The irony was where he was. So like John had never hunted this area.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you how good hunters will read the woods and just end up in the good areas.
spot, yeah.
Because it's a ridge, and it runs north and northwest, southeast, something like that. And where he was is like a notorious sexy intersection, and the bucks they bet on that knob. And I was thinking the same thing he was when I cut the track. I'm like, oh my God, this never happens. Not to me anyway. I usually catch them on the night walk, and I got to track them for 11 miles, and then we come to this.
Yeah.
And we're both like, he's going to be right here. And the sun was, you could see the sun was hitting. He's like, we're going to double. He's going to be right here. So we talked just for a quick bit, and I'm like, what do you want to do? You want me to stay on the track, or do you want to stay on the track? And he's like, why don't you stay on the track, and I'll just make a swing out around him.
Yeah. He was puttering. He was acting like he was feeding a little bit, and he was acting like he was going to bed. And I'm like, just if you jump him, there was some cuts and stuff, so I just swung way wide to his left, and maybe if he jumps, he'll run in front of me or whatever. We did that 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, we met up a couple times.
Yeah, and I think after this third time, I made a big swing, and there was like 2 cuts with a strip of woods down between the middle of it. And I was in the left-hand cut, and I cut all the way through that strip of woods, and I got to the cut on the other side, and I never cut the buck's track. I'm like, uh-oh, he's in between us now. So I call him, like, you better be paying attention, because this buck's in between us. So I was on that right-hand cut, so I went back on my own tracks. I'm like, that other cut I can see better. I'm going to go back over there and wait. I went over to that other cut, and then I started second-guessing myself. I'm like, maybe he's going to come out. Your mind just goes nuts because you don't know. You know something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I walked back on my tracks again, and there's that buck track in my tracks. And when he hit my buck tracks, he stopped, spun right around, went back towards Travis. I'm like, well, I don't know. He's right. I mean, he is right here. And all I did was run out to that cut. I'm like, he's coming right at you or something. And when I hit that cut, he was bailing across it, and he was running right on a dead run. And I shot 3 times.
Yep.
And
boom, and then boom, boom.
Yeah, and I dumped him on the second or third shot.
And meanwhile, I was tracking the buck, and he was, like John said, he was just pittering, feeding, meandering, giving all indications he was going to bed, but he's going downhill. He's like in a hole.
Yeah.
Just doesn't make sense that he's in a bed here. So I was kind of...
He hit an old doe track, didn't he?
Yeah, he got under sniffing a doe, yeah. And then he called me, and he said, hey, be ready, because I've kind of come around that whole thing, and his track hasn't come out of there. And you're not far from me. We didn't know how far, just talking on the radio, but I said to him, I'm like, well, good luck for me, because the wind's right up my butt. And he must have just smelt me, because just about the time he pulled the trigger, I was standing in his bed where I jumped him out of there. So he went, and what it was, I think he smelt his track and kind of didn't know what to do. He ran back towards me, was like, uh-oh, that danger's still there, and then headed out through the cut. And luckily, he had the presence of mind to run to the cut, and he was just you said he was just loping through the cut.
He was going pretty good. He was trying to get out of there, but probably if I hadn't have been there 20 seconds later, he'd have been out of sight.
Was he electrocuted with the SSTs?
Oh, yeah. Those are good rounds.
You electrocuted him.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, says, electrocuted him, SST.
Yeah. Those Hornady
You like those?
bullets are good rounds. Yeah.
What do you shoot? What grain are you shooting?
I shoot a 308, and they're 150 grain.
Mm-hmm.
And
Fast.
up until this year's episode of there hasn't been a deer that's gone out of sight. I mean, it doesn't usually create an exit wound, so that deer's taking the full energy of that round, and they just can't handle that, that shock, that initial shock. It puts them down, even on marginal shots. So
And I've shot them. That 168 grain SST.
Yeah.
I've shot those through that Browning, and then
Odd 6.
no 308.
Oh, 308.
And then what is the other one I like? Boat Kings. What are
Bow tails.
Bowtails. Yeah.
No, Game Kings. Maybe they're Game Kings.
Sierra, a Game King.
Are they Federal Game Kings? I don't remember.
Yeah, I
like that.
have. I run those. I do hand loads on all my stuff, and it's 165 Game Kings, 65 grain for my 30-06. But the next day, so, I helped John drag his buck out. We celebrated. It was a good time. Got
What
some
was
pictures.
that buck?
It was a nice 8-pointer. It was like a 19-inch wide 8-pointer. It was spindly, short points, but
Nice
it was
buck.
It was a real nice buck. Fun hunt. And I think it weighed 179 or 180.
I want to say it was knock on the door 180.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a mature deer. Like if you had looked at that deer, it just had that real long, mature face.
Yep.
That was Thanksgiving week.
Just run out, probably.
We can get a picture to drop on YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Got a picture of it with him.
Yeah.
So the next day I says, let's go back up in that area because there was another, before I got into John that day, I cut another buck track that I was like, it's one of those, you might take it. I don't know. But I really wanted to go to check the corner, which is what I call it, which is where we bumped into each other. So long story short, I went back in that same year and I cut this buck track that was parallel on that ridge coming from where we had double teamed that one. My father was down on the edge of the knob and I cut that track and I called my dad. I'm like, hey, it was a lot of fun double teaming that buck yesterday with John. I said, why don't you come, we'll double team this one. I ain't doing that, no, blah, blah, blah. Well, I tracked him for a little bit and I said, you know what, it was a squeaker, And I said, I'm going to go see if I can find something better. So I took off that track and did like a big loop. And I ended up kind of closer to my dad. And I ended up convincing him to come join me and let's go double team this thing and see what he's going to do. So we double teamed him, and I'll kind of fast forward through some of it, but we got to the end.
You don't have to.
There's this knob at the end.
Give us all the details.
All right, I'll give you the details.
Okay.
So we go to this knob, and same scenario as with the buck that I was talking about from Maine earlier. I said to my dad, so why don't you stay on the track, and I'll do a big loop to the left. And he took off on the track, and I don't know, it was probably 20 minutes, half hour. I'm standing there. I hate. I don't know why I ever volunteer for this. It's like why when we were double teaming that one, I'll stay on the track. I hate making the swings. Always second guess myself.
Yep.
Don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Hate sitting anyway. And I had to have been, because I was there for 20 minutes. And next thing you know, I look and I can just see the top of my dad's orange hat. So I go running up over the thing, and I'm like, what are you doing? He was like, I'm tracking the buck. I'm like, no way. Like, he walked right. I must have just missed him. He was, obviously my dad's taller than deer is. So, and at this point, it's getting late in the day, and he's like, we're hunting this ridge, and we're probably 1.5 miles from the truck, and he's pitched down. He's going over the wrong side. And so I said to my dad, I said, I'm going to stay on him. I said, if I shoot him, you just drive around and pick me up, which is a nice volunteer thing that I did for him, because it's only like a 15-mile ride around. So anyway, I took the track, and we had bumped him at one of these points because he was kind of like trotting. And I know this area of woods pretty good. There's like these fingers with a bunch of beech nuts. And when you get down to the bottom, there's some cuts. And he was trying to put some distance between me, and so I was just going on him. And I knew that once you get down towards the bottom of the ridge, there's some big, wide open hardwood ranges. And I was trying to hustle to see if I catch him in those hardwoods. And like I talked about earlier, like those bucks will tend to, once they put a few transitions, they feel a lot more comfortable. Every transition, they tend to feel a bit more comfortable. I'd gone to 2 or 3 of these. And there's this big hardwood bowl, and I'm going slow, and I'm scanning. And right on the edge, I see this deer. And he was, I don't know. I'm horrible at this, but he was this big in my scope. Just a little dot.
Long ways away.
And I'm looking, and I run a 2x7 Leopold. And I crank it up to 7, and I put it on him, and I can't even see antlers. Oh, shit, I don't know what to do. So I sneak up. He's just standing there. So I sneak up 2 or 3 trees, scope him again, nothing. 2 or 3 more trees, scope him again. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm getting to the bottom. It's like a big bowl, and he's on the other side. And if I go any lower, I'm going to lose him. You know what I mean? So finally, I'm like, all right, I don't know. I don't know if it's a buck. I don't know. So I'm just like, all right, just stare at him for a while. Maybe he'll turn his head. And he did. He turned his head, and I could see that he had one side. I'm like, all right, it's a buck. He's decent. It's probably the one you've been tracking. I'm standing in his track. And I remember my buddy Ryan does a lot of long-range shooting, and he's always, coaching me through the shot. And I remember I went, just about pulled the trigger. I went, what are you doing? You can't pull the you got to, aim high in his back. This is 200-plus yards. So I put it kind of high in his shoulder blade, and just as I did, he took a step. Boom, I shot. And he took off running. I think I sent 2 more at him. And I remember walking down to where I had to cross 2 brooks, and I kept looking back going snowing, where is his track? But it was much further walking than I expected it to be.
It always is.
And
it's always further than where
Yeah.
you thought he was.
And I get down there, and I'm like, I see his track, and I'm like, come on, there's no way I missed. It's probably a pretty good way I missed, but, you always think you're going to hit him.
Yeah.
And I go a little bit, and I see a speck of blood. I'm like, oh, all right, I got one into him. Long story short, what ended up happening is I hit him in the hip. I don't know if it's because of a poor executed shot, which is probably most likely. But my theory was that because it took so long for the bolt to get to him and he took a step, I hit him back.
Yep.
And so I start tracking him, and he goes down a little valley there, and there was this pretty big brook that ran down through there. And I look, and he's booking it up the brook bank on the other side, and I pulled up. At this point, I turned my scope down to 2, thank God. And I put it right between his shoulder blades as he was going up the bank and dropped him.
I'm surprised you're still going after you hit him in the hip.
He wasn't going well.
Was it low in the hip, kind of?
Right in the hip. He
I'm
actually.
surprised I didn't drop him right there.
And I didn't know this at the time, but after I shot, I looked over to the left, and he had actually fallen down.
Yep.
Got up, fallen down again, and then went down that valley and he was hurt and going up that bank. And I weighed quite.
170 something.
Yeah, it was a big deer.
Is that the year we all shot bucks out of that camp?
I don't think that was the year. I think
Yeah, it was, because it's the only one I ever shot up there.
Oh, then yeah.
What year
that
was
the
it?
year.
Oh, 2012.
2012.
Yeah, we went, I think 7 for 7.
Yeah, there was 7 of us in camp. We all shot bucks. It
Was there
fun.
a lot of people killing bucks up in the North Country that year? Or
I
was
think
it
it was
just that camp. You
It was
think
snow. I mean, we had
just
snow.
a lot of snow.
I think it was a good year for our group, and I think it was a good feed and all that.
2012.
But it was fun. I ended up dragging it down, and where I dragged it down, I get down there, and I'm like, I'm right behind these camps, and I'm smoked. I've been tracking this buck. I helped him drag that one and double team that one the day before. I'm like, I'm just gonna drag it right out in between these 2 camps.
Oh, heck yeah.
May not make some friends, but they were great, wicked nice guys, and they were tickled to see the buck, and actually ended up dragging out a really nice 8-pointer in that same spot a few years later. But,
No kidding.
Yeah, but actually, you ended up taking that cape on that, didn't you? Use that cape for something?
Yeah. So what was funny is the 10-pointer I'd shot in Maine 3 days earlier. I wasn't gonna mount, and I had brought it to the butcher already before I went to camp with Travis. And then I shot this 8-pointer, and Travis was like, what would be really cool? You shot 2 nice bucks this year. If you could have them both mounted. I'm like, well, I already got rid of that one. He's like, well, you can have the cape off mine. So I ended up taking the cape off his and mounting that 10-pointer.
It was a good year, 8 and a 10.
It was the first year I've ever shot 2 rack bucks, I think.
Have you ever done it since?
Yeah, a couple times.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
I swear. Was that the time that you shot the one out from underneath John Moulton, or was it Brian Emerson's deer?
Oh my gosh.
It's
A lot
happened
of that-
multiple times.
They get salty. These guys get salty.
Well, I mean, hey,
Some of the stories, if you hear them, that like it just doesn't make sense. It's kind of like
like him with sheds. With,
Yeah,
with Molten
like the
and
vacuum.
sheds? Yeah.
yeah.
There's a lot of truth to that. There's pretty good similarity right there.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That you just stumble into them.
It just happens sometimes.
I mean, I always say I'd rather be lucky than good any day.
I mean, I'm busting his balls, but I mean, a lot of it is putting yourself in the right areas.
Yeah.
Being persistent.
Yeah. Keeping your head up.
And for the listeners out there that are like, why haven't I shot a big buck? Well, if you keep doing it,
Yeah, you will.
and you keep putting yourself in the right places and putting in the effort, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And there's other people that, maybe it happens more. That's okay. Your time will come.
Yep.
At least that's what I'm hoping for anyway.
You've killed some big ones.
Yeah, not like some of the people sitting around me right now.
A lot of luck. A lot of luck involved, really,
Yeah.
for a big deer.
The hell with that.
With luck?
Yeah, I don't believe in it.
You don't believe in luck?
Some. I think a lot of it is intuition.
Yeah.
Where to go, what to do, when to do it.
Yeah.
Timing. I think timing is the biggest thing of it.
But
I think track and box. I mean, I can tell you that timing is the biggest factor with track and box.
and I think that's where the luck comes. That's what I'm talking
Got to
about.
catch a break.
That timing.
You do have to
that's-
catch a break, and sometimes it takes a certain scenario, right? Maybe it's a doe, maybe it's him feeding, maybe it's him bedding, whatever it may be. There's multiple scenarios. I think above all else, it's persistence, right? Not giving up on it, just knowing what you're after and just sticking to it.
Mm-hmm. You know, I think a lot of times too is just don't overthink it. Just go find a big track and just follow it.
You'll learn a lot.
You learn a lot, and you're gonna, you know, that timing thing. It's sometimes I feel I'm guilty of it. I overthink it. I'll get on one and I'll be like, you ain't slowing down. I'll go try to find another one. Well, they're you know, the day's shot. I should have just stayed on that track. But yeah,
I think that luck plays more of a role in the bow hunting, the still hunting aspect of it. You know, connecting those 2 points. There's a lot of factors when it comes to bow hunting or still hunting or something, you know, but tracking, you're going to create your own luck. You really are.
That's part of what I love about tracking is, you know, it's the challenge. It's the fact that you know that it's just if you can read a track, you know it's a mature deer.
yeah.
And then
You know he's in front of
There
you.
there is a lot of skill
right, and
involved.
that's why I love and I said it in a podcast I did before. I love the unknown.
Yeah.
And I love, and I said it then, it's aside from having a child and not knowing its sex, in the world that we live in today, there's not a lot of unknowns. You want to know what the weather is? It's a click away. Right. You know, with Google and all the information age that we have now. And one of the things that I love so much about tracking is you're fantasizing almost when you're on this track, like, what's he have? Yeah. How much does he weigh? You know, I listened to a podcast you guys did a while back, and you were talking about a buck that had walked by one of your cameras, and he had just this little itty-bitty track.
Yep.
The buck that he killed in Maine the year before last, if you saw that deer's foot, you never would have tracked it.
Yeah. No, that's
and it was a giant.
Yeah. That's why they get old.
So those are the things that go in my head. That's why, like, I'm an opportunistic hunter.
Yep.
I enjoy hunting. I really, really love tracking. And if I'm on a buck track and it's got a rack, I'm going to shoot it. Like,
right. Yeah, no, I agree.
And if it's an 8-pointer and it weighs 155, I'm thrilled. And if it's a, you know, like the 168-pounder this year, I'm thrilled. If it's a 200-pounder, you know, the one I shot the year before was knocking on the door of, like, I'm thrilled. Do I want to shoot 200-pounders? Absolutely. Yeah. Do I want to shoot rack bucks? Absolutely. But am I going to give up the thrill and the opportunity? And I think it's one thing that you do very well, Joey, is you tend to have more of like a focus and a goal, and you'll step over that 170-pound track. I don't know if I can. Yeah. Like, if it's the kill day, and I don't, like, if, in the same regard, if I know there's a buck around that I've been tracking, like, I will lock in and I will just hunt that deer. Mm-hmm. But if it's a kill day and I find a 107, 180-pound buck track, I'm going to go after it.
Yeah. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
No. Where I'm at in my hunting, I don't know if you want to call it a career, but hunting, you know, I can't step over those 170, 180-pounders.
And again, in the back of my mind, I don't know what they got on their head. You know?
Yeah, no, that's another thing. When I said a lot of luck when you were talking about a real big one, that's kind of what I meant too. It does take a lot of luck for when you get on a track for it to be a 160-inch buck. Oh, yeah. Because it could be a 100-inch buck.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
that part of it is definitely
luck.
Yeah.
A lot of it is. Unless you know of a big one in the area, then okay. Then, you know, but still, you don't know what the heck it is unless you see him put his head down in the snow and it's 3 feet wide or whatever. Mm-hmm. Okay. But, you know.
But how exciting is that when you jump on a track and you've only been tracking it for 100 yards and you look down? We had a buck, but buddy of mine were double teaming not last season, season before. And, I mean, we only went on him 100 yards. He told us everything we wanted to know. didn't have a big track, but hooked a huge tree and then fed and had a, nice antler marks in the snow. And we're like, okay, this is what we're doing.
You
for
know
the
for a
rest of the
we
day.
fact.
need. That's all we need. Yep.
What do we say, Travis? We shot the wrong deer.
It's happened.
Oh, it's
It's gonna happen to you, you jerk. So
It's gonna
I've done it.
happen.
this is what happens to John. So, God, I hate you. I shot a buck. I don't know what year that was.
A couple of them.
Yeah, the one though, the one that I put you on the track. What year
I
was
was
that?
13 because it was the year after.
This is I
10
don't even like
years ago.
reliving the story. I mean, it's painful. I mean, this is one of the biggest buck. I mean, you saw it. It was like,
Yeah. It was a big deer.
I mean,
Where were we?
Northern New Hampshire.
giant.
It was a big deer.
And I had gotten up at like 3 a.m. and I bombed around all these roads in the FJ, and I found this buck track. And he was going right to left, and there's another road that kind of loops up and around. So I bombed up there. It was starting to get light, so I wanted to, beat the green plates to the track. So good luck. Oh, did I slide that in? Hey, like I said before, I'm a green plater at heart. My dad's from Vermont, so where I grew up.
Yeah, you're born and raised.
Yeah, pretty much. Right across the river. So I go up. Anyway, I bombed back down, and the buck had come out and walked right up the road. And this only was 20 minutes. So I'm like, whoa, boom. Like this, he's right here. Rah, I'm bombing up through, and there's a little, like, cul-de-sac thing that kind of bombs off to the right. So I bomb down in there, and I'm getting my stuff on, and I look up. Like, my truck's pretty much, I think I parked it. Or maybe I
No,
don't
you were opening the door. And
That's
the
right. I
thing
was opening the
still
door. I
running.
hadn't even put it in park. That's right. And I jammed it in park. I jump out, and a white, just a white rat, giant. And he's going through the cut, and I pull up, and, he's gone. I didn't get a shot.
I
But
thought you
anyway,
were going to say he had a white chocolate rack. I was like,
I
dang.
almost did say white chocolate.
white chocolate.
Well, yeah, I love white chocolate. So anyway, I pull up, and he's gone. I get on him, and I'm tracking him, and he goes down over this little knob and gets with a doe. And now I'm like, okay. I like it when they get with doe. Some guys don't. I think it distracts them.
I love it.
And he's just dogging her. He's harassing her big time. And I get on this edge, and this is one of those scenarios where, like, you can do everything right and it still doesn't happen. Like, I knew that deer was going to be right there. It was a transition, and I'm like, he's going to be in this green growth. There's a cut. They're not going to want to go on that wide open cut. It's 9 o'clock in the morning at this point, and might have been earlier than that. But anyway, I hear it, brr, and whew, the doe takes off, and I just see the rack, and I pull up, no shot. I run down there, take out my bleat can, meh. Bah. I hear a grunt. I'm like, this never happens to me. Here he comes. Bah. And I see a leg of a deer, and I see bone, and it's thick. It's like this. He comes through another hole. Boom! I see enough. Fork horn.
Oh. Yeah. It happens.
Runs straight at him. Comes out of the thick stuff running straight at him.
And at this point, like, I could
Probably
see that
Big
he
Boy
was leaking.
chasing him.
So it was boom, boom. And, of course, he folds up right at my feet,
Yeah.
So I called him on the radio. I'm like, this is what just happened.
Shot the wrong deer.
You need to get over here.
The big Hebehorbus probably just pushed him out of the brush pile.
So he ends up,
Right.
I'll let him tell the rest of that story. But before he does, in Maine, the big one that we just talked about with the white rack,
Yeah.
he shot the wrong buck. So I shoot the wrong buck, and it's a spike horn.
Yeah. He shoots the
Fork
wrong
horn.
buck.
Fork horn. It was a fork horn.
He way up good?
Oh,
or-
he's a wicked good one. Yeah, Shay's buck 10 anyways.
Ate well, though.
I
didn't
did.
he?
Oh, he ate.
I
wow.
did shoot the 191 big wide 8 the next day, so I did have
In
redemption
another state.
in Maine. Yeah.
Okay. We had to clear that
I
up
had to
there.
go. I had to go run to Maine and get it done.
Right.
That deer, that buck didn't have a chance because Travis was angry. But anyway, yeah, I just like to point it out. I shoot that one, and then John's like, "Yeah, I shot the wrong deer." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I don't know. I was on this buck track, and I was just kind of following this one to keep it honest, and yeah, I shot him." And then he shows me the deer laying on the ground. It's 142 incher.
Not bad, right? Not bad.
Yep.
I shot the wrong one.
Yep.
So tell him that story though. What happened with those 2 bucks?
Oh,
You
so
remember?
after he shot that buck, he tagged it, and I wasn't too far away. I'm like, so who's taking that track? He's like, come take it. He goes, I can't. I'm tagged now. So I met him. He was dragging his buck out, and he was almost out. And I'm like, well, where's the track? He goes, just follow my tracks. You'll see it. You know,
He's pissed.
I'm like,
probably.
well, where is it? He's like, just you can't miss it. It's huge. You can't miss the track. Just follow my tracks. And I'm like, well, do you need a hand dragging this thing out? And did I let you answer or did I just take off?
I'm pretty sure you were walking away as you were asking.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And he wonders why I don't help him anymore.
So I get up in there. Of course, there's a big track, you know, like you said, there was no mistaking it. And it went up over that knob and down the other side, and it kind of got in a barnyard. And I had a tough time sorting it out. He made a few loops in there. And there was actually another buck in there with him. And what had happened is there was a hot doe, and that really big buck was right behind the doe. But then what happened is that other buck had stepped right in his tracks and was like foot for foot covering him up. And that's why I lost his track in there. Like, I couldn't figure it out. And finally, I'm like, well, I can't figure out where that big one went. But this one's a 180-pounder. You know, that big one was probably 220. He was huge.
Big.
So I started tracking him. Then all of a sudden, they like, you know, one of those bucks went around a tree. I'm like, there's 3 deer here. It like for the longest time, I thought there was only 2 deer, a buck and a doe, but there was actually 3. And I'm like, well, that means that smaller one's in the back. I'm like, that's good. So I'm trucking on. I'm like, Jesus, this smaller one's going to get his butt kicked if he keeps hounding this big one. Sure enough, probably half a mile later, they're going back up the ridge, and there was a scene that was probably 100 yards by 100 yards, and it was all probably 1-inch saplings, and those bucks fought, and they had all of those mowed over. They broke them off like I have never seen such devastation. And I think that in the smaller buck won. The smaller buck took the doe afterwards. Wow. That bigger one must have been tired. And, you know, he kind of just peeled off and went up on this knob, and I ran out of daylight. The next morning, I went right back there, got back on his track, and I should have stayed with him that night because he only went like another 100 yards and bedded. Oh. Whatever, I tracked him, went down across the road, up on another knob, down across another road, up on another knob, and got with another doe. And I got out in this cut, and I ended up jumping them, and I saw them, but they were like probably 250 yards out through that cut. I couldn't get a shot. And that was kind of the end of the story. They boogied after that.
My dad did jump on him there a day or two, and then I think it was the end of the season, and we lost our snow or something. But I still think that buck that he's talking about, the one that had the small foot, that he estimated 180, this is in that same general vicinity of where he had killed that 8-pointer. And I tracked a buck the year before. And I'm going to tell you, I just took the track because I was like, it's going the way I want to go. But he was stepping over stuff that, like, he should drag something. I think he was a big, long, you know, didn't have much stagger, didn't have a big hoof, but I think he was a big buck. And a buddy of mine that was hunting that area saw a huge rack buck. And that was the track that was in the area, you know what I mean? So I think it was one of those tracks that, you know, we need to be careful we're not stepping over, you know.
Above all else, it takes length to weigh.
Yeah. Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
I think the general rule of thumb is a deer between a 22 and a 26-inch stride, right, is generally between 220 and 240.
Whoa. That's why I carry measuring tape with me.
Do you really?
You measure something on your gun and you'll remember that.
I mean, I can do that, but I was curious.
Say that again, 24 and 26?
20
From what?
22
Toe
to
to toe?
26. Yeah.
Toe to toe?
Stride.
Yeah.
Is 220 to 240.
I'll do that, and then I measure their stagger.
And that's walking, like calmly walking.
That's calmly walking.
Yep.
It takes a long deer to weigh.
Yep.
Short deer don't. I mean, short deer can,
Yeah,
right? They
they're
just
built
don't.
like a heifer,
They'll
yeah.
get 200, over 200.
So
most of them are 180.
It's like the one you shot in New Hampshire this year. If that thing was a little longer.
Gosh.
Yeah, what do you weigh? 195?
He weighed 193.
193.
That thing
But
was
a
as short,
Yeah, it's still,
short as could be.
It's funny we get so hung up on the 200, but 190 is a big deer.
It's
you
a
know,
beautiful
Well, 200 is the benchmark, and
it is, but it's funny because 190 could be the benchmark though, because
Right.
190 is a big deer.
no, it is. It
you
is
know?
for sure.
We're talking pounds.
You know, Corey Ryder was when we were up to the camp there in Mass was telling me, and I don't know if you've heard this before, but I thought it was interesting. What he was telling me is how tracking, and maybe everybody already knows this, I don't know, is how it kind of came to fruition was, back in the day, and I don't know what era we're talking, if we're talking 40s, 50s, 60s, but when, people were hunting, they were trying to provide for their family. And most men were working all the time. Mm-hmm. And the only days that these individuals had to hunt were on the horrible days that they couldn't go to work. And an efficient way to hunt was to track and then to shoot a deer that had the most meat to provide for their family. They would track the biggest buck track that they could and try and kill a 200-pound buck. And so this is what Corey was telling me. That's kind of how the benchmark was kind of started and how tracking kind of got its start. So
yeah, and what is the most proficient way to fill your freezer in the Northwoods, right? If you got snow on the ground, what is the most proficient way to kill a deer? Tracking a buck.
Yep.
It's just that simple.
If you know what you're doing, yeah.
Yep, it's that simple. And that's I'm sure where he was going with that, right? So.
Yep. Yeah, but it still isn't easy. I can't tell you. I would love to. We should do a Northwoods Whitetails episode, and what we should do is we should call it the unsuccessful hunt, because we could fill probably 20 hours of video with all the unsuccessful tracking that we've all done. I mean, I've tracked hundreds of deer that I don't even see.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for the listeners to understand that, it's about persistence and perseverance and not giving up, not talking yourself out of wow, he's probably not that big, or he's going to go over that ridge, or my feet hurt.
He's not slowing down.
Yeah.
There's nothing that pisses me off more than the fact that I can't catch one. I'm serious. And it's that, November 10th to the 15th time frame that
when
you
there's
can't.
zombie walking.
You can't.
And
catch him.
I can take some serious strides in the woods, and when I can't bump that deer or catch that deer, oh my God, does it piss me off?
I called him
swear
once.
I can feel it when I'm on one. I can almost feel it right away. I'm not gonna catch him. But a lot of times I'll do it anyway, but I never do.
It's got to be the right buck on the right day.
Yeah, you can almost feel it when you get on one. When they got those long strides and
they're straight lining.
Another thing too, I swear, I think I was talking to you about this or somebody, I don't know, but it seems like down in my area, some of those bucks that time of year, they'll just they'll take you way up on the side of this mountain. They'll go way up to the top. There's no deer up there. I just feel like they're getting in shape or something, or beating their chest or something, like testosterone. I don't know why they're doing it, but I've followed so many of them where it's there's no deer up there. What are you doing? They go all the way up into these friggin' spruces, and then they just poop down over the other side into the next one.
My theory with that, because I've noticed the same thing, and it's funny, and where I actually created this theory, and it's just a theory, because I don't know, and I tried to talk to the deer, it doesn't work. I noticed it when I was a moose guide, is that even when it was hot, the big bulls would go high.
Yep.
And it makes no sense. Yes, you lose some temperature, but you're down in those swamps in the softwood, in the water, near the water, and it's so much cooler. But the big bulls go high. And my theory is the thermals.
Yep.
Is they're trying to smell for does and or cows. Yep. So that's my personal theory as to why they go high. I mean, obviously safety and the thermals.
You don't think it has anything to do with the thermal cover, the wind?
That's what I'm saying. Well, and I think it's bringing the scent. They can go up there and they can cruise along the edge of that ridge, and they can smell everything below.
Oh, everything. Yep. Yeah. And there's something to be said.
And how many times have you been up there and you're following one, and all of a sudden, down they go, and then they go with the doe?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think there's scenarios for that, right? Like how bucks cruise ridges depending on which direction the wind's blowing, right? A mature buck will always bed with the wind at his back, and look down the hill. But I think that they oftentimes will cruise ridges with a crosswind to their nose, right? One side or the other. But
right.
They're doing that for a reason. Maybe there was a doe up there at some point, and he's just cruising through there real quick, see if she's there, and hitting the road. I don't know. They do some strange things, but I've seen some strange scenarios too. I remember tracking a buck up on the ski resort one year, and he took me right across the face of the ski resort and into this gully. And I was like, what is he doing? He's headed right for, I'll say it. He was headed right for Smuggler's Notch.
Yeah.
We were 3,000 feet, and he was headed right for the notch. Nothing but ledges.
Yeah.
And there was a doe and fawn in between the ski trails. And that's what he was
after.
He was after.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. They do strange things.
Yeah.
You know,
I still think they are working out. That's what I do.
Working out?
I think they're
getting in
working out.
shape.
Oh, they're trying to work something out.
That's what they. Well, I don't know. It's just the way I think about it. Because sometimes when I'm going up the side of the mountain on them, I'm like, jeez.
Well, at least I'm getting in shape.
I guess. I mean, that's what they got to be thinking too, right? They're fighting for the ladies and stuff. And why else would they be running up the side of this freaking hill?
There's always a reason.
Always a reason.
Always. They don't do it for nothing.
So I think, I always talk about, like, when I talk to John, we'll be re-encountering a hunt. And then I'll talk to Joey, and he'll tell me his thing. So what would you say, and I'll start with Isaac, what would you say your tracking style is?
I like to swing a lot. I get off the track, come into barnyard, just pick my head up, stop tracking. I've shot a lot of them like that. Get into like a good pocket, and then I just don't even care about the tracks anymore. That's my style. And I've gotten my biggest buck tracking. I swung on them, jumped them, and swung on them and killed them.
Kind of like you did this year.
I mean, I've killed them in their beds too, a few of them. But that's just, I guess I would say my style is more loose. Like, kind of,
Yeah. I've tried the whole swing thing. Never works for me.
Yeah.
Never works for me. Not saying don't try it. I mean,
yeah.
I'll try it again this year. I'll try it every year. But I am more of a, depending on, unless it is so blatantly obvious, unless they pretty much write, I am going to bed in the snow, I just go. I get on the track and I try and put down as many miles as I can. And I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care if I jump them.
You say you like to kick them in the butt one time.
Well, I just want to be in the game.
Right, yeah.
And I can tell you, in my experience, when I was a younger hunter, I feel like I spent so much time not even in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I feel as though that's like, that's also a big part of it, right? Like, if there's one thing that most trackers do wrong, it's to go too slow.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, if you're moving slow and that deer's got time to feed, bed, get back up again, feed a little bit, and hit the road, you're going a little bit too slow, right? Yeah. Like, I think there's scenarios for it all. Some guys can crawl through the woods, right? When they know they're getting close. I don't. Like, I take one look, I scan it, and I take the next step. I often feel like if I go too slow, that buck's going to catch my wind, and I'm not going to see him. If I go in there and I know what's going to happen, there's a good chance I'm going to get a shot at him.
Right. And I like trying to look at, and if you hunt it enough, you kind of can tell, like, okay, I'm on a spruce knob, and you come up over that knob and you didn't jump him, and we're all theorizing on the track, like, what's this deer doing? And, like, I personally think, like, when I'm tracking that buck, he was looking to lay down here.
Yeah.
But maybe a doe caught a doe scent, or he changed his mind. He didn't like it. And then at that point, like, I'm probably, pussyfooting to get up there because I think he's going to be there. But then I'm going to go because now he's back in the hardwoods again, and I want to catch him in the hardwoods where I can get a crack at him. I tend to change my speed a lot, and I tend to hunt really fast. And I think that's why I end up shooting at a lot of deer running.
When you say you hunt fast, when you can see what's in front of you and there's nothing in front of you, you line out.
Gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make it through that ground just as quick as you can and cover ground, make up time.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I don't get off the track. Like, I will not.
I almost never do. I mean, I do make on a real
I want to know
occasion.
what that deer's doing, right, at all times. It's just not something that I'll do. Now, if he gets to a barnyard, I will, going to give away a little secret here, but I often look at my GPS and what direction he's headed, and I'll lap either the bottom side of it or the top side of it and pick that direction back up. And 9 times out of 10, he's going to go through that barnyard, and he's going to come out, and he's going to continue going that same direction.
Straight through.
Yep. Don't even mess with trying to try and sort them out. All you're going to do is just lose ground.
Or you'll kill them in the barnyard.
You could.
Or the mistake that I make sometimes, we actually, you and I, when we were all powwowing at the hunt stock, we kind of had this conversation, is I tend to keep tracking sometimes more than I should. Like I'm trying to figure it out, I'm trying to sort it out when, and I think it was you that said it, or maybe it was Dustin. You have arrived.
That was me. Yeah.
Yeah, like stop tracking, start looking.
Yeah.
And I try to do that, but I find myself every once in a while too much of a beagle and my head's down too much. But
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
And I think it's, situational. Like if you're on a real fresh one and there's does in the area and you come into that barnyard and you're seeing all those, big, long drag marks where the buck's, doing this thing, pushing her around. That's what I mean when you have arrived. Like a lot of times you're going to kill them right there, or you're going to see them. Or, and those get real tricky if you have your head down and you're going through, because then you just have running tracks going everywhere and you're like, oh, he's just running her around. Well, they probably saw you stumbling through there with your head down.
right.
And then good luck trying to figure out those running tracks coming out of there, because this is a nightmare.
I usually try and do the containment loop, picking a compass direction like you talked about. You do the, east, west, north, south, whatever it is. And then I, if I don't find it, I'll go right through the middle. The Vermont buck this year, the one that I missed. Oh God, that hurts.
Yeah.
That was a big buck. Wicked tall rack. Anyway.
I would have completed the trifecta, Trav.
I know.
Dang. It's only been done a few times probably.
That was painful. And then, when you shoot and you miss and you're like, that was a bad shot. It wasn't, that deer was dead in my mind. Look, I got up there and I was like, can I smell him? He's got to be laying right here somewhere. Like, and no blood, no hair. Tracked him all the way down the road, and he saw him 2 more times, and oh well. But that was one of those barnyard scenarios, and I picked my head up, and I did a containment loop, and I just kept looping, and bang, ran right into him, chasing that doe.
Yep.
It's funny how everybody has a different style. Like it's all the same thing, but everybody's kind of does it slightly differently.
Depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Every situation's different. If I think I can get away with going fast, if the buck's with a doe and he's distracted, I'll crank on that track. But if he's alone and he's not looking for does, he's going to find a spot to bed down, he's going to be in the most perfect spot where he can see you. You can't miss any details. You got to know what's going on. And the only way I can get close to him is going super slow when they're alone.
Yeah. So death creeping on them.
Yep.
It's funny. It's almost like with a big buck, you gotta either outsmart them like with a trick, or just will them to death and just like jump them 6 times and catch them the perfect time. It's like one or the other. You got to do, It's
well, like what he just said, and I completely agree with it. Like, you have to go slow. My problem is I have tracked so many bucks, and I'm reliving one in my head right now, but I've tracked so many bucks where I'm like, all right, this is it. And I push it, and I go in there, and he's going to be right here. And it's right? Everything's right. He's feeding, but he doesn't like it, and he keeps going. And this happens time and time again, and I'm going like, I'm not even in the game yet. I'm behind this deer. I don't know how far behind this deer is, and I could be 2 hours behind him. So what I tend to like to do is just get him up.
kick him in the
Game has begun.
Yep.
In my personal opinion, is that they will bed the best the first time because they weren't pushed. They checked 15 spots before they made the decision, and this is where I'm going to spend the night. Well, on the second one, it's not going to be as good. And on the third one, it's not going to be as good. And Travis he's coming. He's coming.
Trav don't give a shit.
Here comes Stubby Legs, as John would call me. And I'm going to make him bed in a bad spot, and I'm going to get a crack at him. And then,
He's going to make a mistake, and you're going to capitalize.
that is my strategy. But it's got to be a kill day.
Yeah. How long do you guys wait after you kick him in the butt the first time?
First time, I'll wait 15, 20. Second time, depending on what he did and if he's with a doe or not, probably 15, 20. After that, I don't do it anymore. Just go.
Yeah, I mean, it's situational, but most of the time I won't stop and wait. I'll keep walking.
You'll keep going?
I'll keep going. I might jump off of it a little ways, but I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to stop and sit around and wait. I'm not going to start a fire and cook a sandwich. It's just not something I'm going to do. I'm not going to sit there and freeze to death. I'm going to keep moving. Chances are that buck's going to run up there. He's going to turn around and look back. If you go one side or the other and keep working with him and then cut back across, you're gaining time.
Right.
You're gaining time, and there's a very good chance you're going to catch that deer walking away from you.
Yeah. And it's funny with the styles, too, because, like, that's, what you like to do, Joey. And if I'm anywhere near, if I'm, like, within a mile of a road and I'm on a big one and I kick him in the butt, I'm going somewhere else for like 3 hours, and I'm coming back, because if you give that buck 2 or 3 hours, in my mind, it's almost as good as you never jumped him.
Are you kidding me?
I swear. And I've
How
had
do you have?
go check out
That's
another
like
spot.
baking a cake and
telling you.
sitting right there, and you're not gonna have a bite.
I've had good success with it. In Maine, I've done it a lot because it seems like
Wow.
I'm always on top of a road in Maine.
Yeah.
Kick
Oh,
one in the
yeah.
ass, and then I run out to the truck and go check somewhere else, and then come back 2 or 3 hours later, get back on them, and they don't go anywhere. You know, you just start almost death creeping from there.
A lot of times they take off. They don't even know what you are. They just
That's
Sometimes.
you know what that is, John? That's what we talk about with the Vermonters.
yeah.
Well, I think I'll just walk out the road, have a sandwich.
Yeah.
There's something about the heritage, and I'm being serious. There's something about the heritage in Vermont where you guys just tend to
Very laid back.
very laid back. You're very like, yeah, you know, it's a nice buck. I'm not really, you know, well, yeah, we didn't get him. We'll get him tomorrow. You know.
Well, I mean, it's
Then
all,
there's me.
or Joey.
I'm
Joey
the
can't
least
leave him
laid
either.
back person there is. I cannot sit still. If I sit still long enough, I'll create new business.
Well, no,
It's just the way I am.
That's why I have to leave and go check another swamp out or something. I can't sit there either.
Right.
I'm either gonna do like a big elaborate swing on him and come back on his track, or that's why if I'm close enough to the road, I'll go get in the rig and check something else out, or
Right.
and then come back. But that's just the way, you know, I do it. But
Yeah, I remember the New Hampshire buck video. You were like, I can't just sit here, so I'm going to backtrack, and then you double back and end up. And I do that sometimes too for that same reason. I can't sit there, so I'm not just going to sit here on my butt for 15, 20 minutes. I'm going to go make a swing this way because maybe he doubled back, or, geez, that looks cool over there because I got to do something to occupy myself. Or,
I'd freeze to death if I sat there for 30 minutes.
yeah,
it
I
does
don't wear
get
any
cold.
clothes.
Yeah.
I think the more time you give him, the better, especially after the first one.
No,
think
you're
so.
right. Like if
Yeah.
you can, you watch a deer get chased by something, right? It's gonna
Yeah.
go a little ways. It's gonna stop, stand there, and we've all seen it. You know what I mean? Deer will sit there, right? Stand there. Sorry.
Right.
Until it's waiting for something to move.
Yep.
It doesn't move, settles down, it goes
Yep.
back to doing what it's doing.
And the more time, or you can will him to death and just keep on running him down. And some guys can do that. That seems like that's your style. That's how you do it. I think a lot of guys do it that way.
Yeah, I mean,
You got to have long legs to do that. I only got 28-inch legs, man. What do you want from me? I got to outsmart him. I can't run him down.
I just like, for me, it's you know, and I don't always do things because it's the most effective way. I do it because it's the most fun way.
That's true, too. Yeah.
And for me, it's like, it's fun tracking, don't get me wrong. But when it really gets fun is when you know you're right behind them. Oh, yeah. Like, I just jumped them.
Yeah.
I am pretty confident, again, if the conditions are such that if I just jumped you and I'm going to give you a little bit of time, I'm going to get a crack at you. Like, there is the occasional buck that, you know, they lose you, they get in, you know, something, and you get cut off, or they go. How many times you jump when they just never stop running? 3, 4, 5 miles, or just 90% of the time that doesn't happen. And you're going to get a crack at them.
Yep.
I love it. Like, a lot of people will be like, oh, I jumped him. Damn it, it's over. And I'm like, no, it's just begun. This is when it starts getting
The
fun.
games have begun.
We may have to. This probably means we got a lot more walking to do today. But,
You're going to earn your beer, that's for sure.
I love the suffrage.
Yep.
Need a little suffrage to make the story worth it. We've all had some suffrage, I'm sure.
Amen to that. Well,
was
we
a good
probably
one.
better wrap this baby up.
Yeah. It was a good one, boys.
Yes, sir.
Good little round table. Anything else?
I think that about covers this one.
Moral of the story is there's 100 different ways to do it.
There is.
Find what works for you and stick to it.
Yep.
And pay attention to the Northwoods Whitetails YouTube channel for a shooting lesson conducted by John Moulton.
Yeah, that would be cool. And some shed videos, I hear.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, boys. We'll see you on the next one.